Okey, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi.
Waalaikumsalam.
Boleh dengar suara saya tak?
Boleh.
Boleh.
Okay, we are going to start our class shortly. I just would like to remind everyone to fill in the attendance, okay, using the Google form that I've just sent in the group. Okay, that one is permanently for KBA2, so you can use the same Google form in our next class and the following classes until end of the semester. Okay, for today I want you to fill in twice. First one is for today's class and second one is for your quiz day before the semester break. Okay, so put the date on the day you set for your quiz. Is that clear?
Clear, madam?
Yes, madam, clear.
Okay, today our topic is on population and sampling. Everyone is ready for the class?
Yes.
All right. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, madam. Yes.
Okay, so today is on population and sampling. I'm not going to go in very detail for this topic because I know that you have learned this in your research methodology class as well as in your data analysis or what we call it as a statistics class. So I will just go briefly and explain a little bit on what is the difference between population and sampling. Okay, but before we begin, I would like to inform you that pertaining to our project, can you listen to my voice?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Pertaining to our project, the project that I asked you to do, the final assignment that I asked you to do on the mini research. Okay, I have made a decision not to ask the students to conduct a research, but instead you are going to produce a thorough research proposal. Okay. So your project will stop at chapter 3. So it is going to be a thorough, complete research proposal, group research proposal, where it will consist of chapter 1, 2, and 3, and it stops there. So you don't have to continue to chapter 4 and 5, means you don't have to do or conduct your mini research. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yes, madam.
You can use the same topics as I have looked before, okay, with the one that you submitted, so you can use that, but it does not have to go up to chapter 4 and 5. Okay, it will stop at chapter 3 only. And then after you have done the proposal, you need to continue with the video pitching, okay, group video pitching on the proposal as well as the slides. Okay, so 3 things that you need to submit to me by end of the semester. Okay, the first one is the write-up of your research proposal. Second one is the video. Okay, video, it must be uploaded in YouTube and there must be some viewers and some likes, okay, in order for you to gain extra bonus marks. Okay, and then also you need to submit to me the PowerPoint slides. Okay. Okay, before we begin, I want to ask you, any one of you, if you do not understand, you can ask me now pertaining to the assignment. Those who understand, please raise your hand. If you can raise your hand. Okay, Badrul Hisham, all right. Those who understood, please raise your hand. Okay, it seems that most of you understand, okay, what is meant by research proposal. So I think we can continue with my notes, okay. Our topic today, population and sampling. Okay, what is population? When we talk about population in terms of research, it is not population like okay, it's not population like rakyat negeri Selangor, rakyat negeri Sembilan. Okay, when we talk about research, okay, population means a group of either a group of individuals or a group of things, okay, a group of contents that you want to study, okay. Like here in my notes, I put a definition of population is the entire group that is being observed by a researcher. So it could be orang, it could be human beings, it could be things, it could be animals, it could be articles, okay, anything that a researcher want to observe or want to examine, okay, in a research. So that is population. And it is almost always assumed to be infinite in size because it is too large and difficult to measure. So when we want to conduct a research, okay, we do have a population, but we have to bear in mind that population usually they have the infinity number usually, okay. So if you want to study the whole population, it will be very difficult because the size is very large and it will be very difficult for you to measure. So you will consume a lot of time, you will consume a lot of energy, and of course you will consume or you will waste a lot of money, okay. So the total collection of all cases in which the researcher is interested and wishes to understand, this is also meant by a population, okay. And sometimes population in a research also known as universe. Okay, so defining the population of study would help to reduce the size and make it more relevant to the study, okay. For example, we want to study on the working adults, we want to study on the graduate students, or we want to study on USIM students, we want to study on FEBU students. So these are the populations, okay. How you define populations, okay. So in your research proposal, you don't say population is the entire group of being observed, okay. In your research, in your proposal, your population should be, for example, FEBU students or USIM students, okay, or maybe teenagers in Bandar Baru Nilai, okay. That is how you define your populations, okay. So study population is the aggregation of elements from which the sample is actually selected, okay. So again, I give examples like working adults in private sector, okay, career women in business, okay, first year students in faculty of FEBU, okay, things like that, okay. So it means that you can, from the big population FEBU students, you can confine or you can focus to or you can aggregate, okay, to first year students, second year students, or maybe final year students, okay. And this should be justified what are the elements, okay, that will make this group of participants is considered as final year students, for example. Okay, entire population cannot be studied due to time and resources constraint. Okay, like I said just now, okay, energy, time, money will be wasted a lot if you want to study population. There is only one study that can or must, okay, measure the whole population. This is what we call as census, or in bahasa bancian. Okay, so this is the only one where we are going to measure every single individual in the whole population. Okay, kita tak boleh tinggal even one, okay, in census or bancian. But in a normal research, either it be pure science research or social science research, okay, we only define the population, but then we don't study the population, the whole population, okay, we don't observe the whole population, but we are going to have certain groups what we call as sample. Okay, so for example, the population that always be defined by researchers, for example, Malaysian societies, residents in Klang Valley, USIM students, taxi drivers, secondary school students, okay, university students. Maybe we can have like public university students or private university students in Malaysia, okay. So that is already segmented or aggregated, okay, and also known as research population, and should know the total number of the selected population. So in a research, when you have defined the population, you actually must know the total number of the population. For example, you want to study on FPBU students, you have to know exactly what is the total number of FPBU students, okay? But when you want to observe your research, you want to conduct the research, it's not the FPBU students, everyone in FPBU that you need to study, okay? You need to choose a group of students which represent the characteristics of population that you want to study, and this is what we call as sampling or sample. Since it is impossible to get the data from the population, then sampling is conducted, okay? And collecting data from population is census, like I said just now. If we want to collect data from the whole population, we call it census or bancian. Sampling will save cost, time, personnel, and yield better data, okay? When we have specific small number of sampling, then our data will be more organized, okay? It will be easier for us to analyze the data, okay? Not only that we save money, we save time, we save energy, but also it will be much easier for us to analyze the data. Okay, issues in sampling include representativeness, adequate sample size, and randomization. Okay, that is why when you do your research proposal later on, I want it, because you are not going to conduct the research, I want to see a very thorough, perfect, complete research proposal. So chapter 1, 2, 3 are all of equal importance, okay, for research proposal, but my main focus will be so much on the chapter 3. I want to see how do you describe your chapter 3, your methodology, okay? How do you select your samples in the whole population that you define, okay? So whether you take into considerations 3 issues, okay, representativeness, adequate sample size, and randomization in selecting your samples, okay, for your research proposal. Okay, so this is the diagram that to make you understand better and easier on the population and sample, okay. So the big circle here is the population. Okay, let's say kita katakan ini adalah FPBU students. Okay, so you want to study on FPBU students. So this is all FPBU students. Okay, but it will be very difficult for you if you want to study each one of them. So what you need to do is you choose a group of within this big circle. Okay, it is a subset or subgroup, okay, in a big group to be your samples. Okay, so you need to make sure in this small group, okay, small circle here, they wrap each one of the individual case, or we call this element, okay, represent the characteristics that you have defined for your population. Okay, so you cannot take somehow here, you cannot take somehow here. Okay, sebahagiannya dalam population, sebahagian lagi terkeluar dalam population, tak boleh. Okay, apa maksud terkeluar daripada population? Contoh, you want to study on FEBU students, okay, you ambil separuh ataupun some of FEBU students here, tapi separuh lagi you dah terkeluar, you ambil contohnya alumni, okay, also from FEBU students tetapi dia sudah grad, so he or she is not considered anymore as FBBU student. So walaupun dia duduk dalam area berdekatan, but they are not part of the population. So you have to make sure your sample is within this big circle. Okay, all right, please raise your hand if you understand so far. Okay, good. All right, very good. Okay, because even though I'm not going to go very detailed for population and sampling, but I want you to really understand this topic, because this topic will be included in the mid-semester exam, as well as I will give you another quiz on this topic as well. So I want you to really understand this topic. Okay, so what is sample? Sample is a subset of the population that is representative of the entire population. Okay, like I said just now, okay, I know you have understood what is meant by population and sampling. So sample is a subset. Macam tadi yang I tunjuk, okay, small circle within the big circle is a sample. Okay, so if sample is chosen according to proper guidelines and is representative of the population, then the results using the sample can be generalized. So can be generalized means you boleh apply the same methodology to another population. Contoh, you dah the methodology you use in selecting your samples memang you ikut properly as in a research method yang you belajar. So the results using the sample can be generalized means you boleh gunakan findings you untuk bercakap mengenai FPBU students in general. Okay, walaupun you hanya buat on sebahagian kecil sahaja FPBU students, tapi bila dah dapat findings nanti dalam report tu you boleh cakap, okay, this shows that FPBU students have the tendency to watch certain channels, for example, on television, okay, things like that. Because you dah guna proper method in choosing your samples, okay. So a sample does not provide the exact data that a population would, and the potential error must be taken into account, okay. So even though I said that sample, the findings, okay, or results using the sample can be generalized into the whole population, but still, because sample does not provide the exact data that a population would, so kita kena take into consideration there would be some potential errors, okay. So if this happens, we have to justify in our findings later on. Okay, but you don't have to worry. For this topic, it's not important for your project because your project stops at research methodology, but still you need to define your population. You need to convince me how do you select, how are you going to select your samples, okay, using which method. You have to convince me, and those things I know you learn from research methodology class. Okay, all right. Examples of sample. Okay, government servants. Okay, benda ni saya dah ulang tadi. So this is I want to make it even clearer to you. Kita gunakan FEBU students saja. So example of sample is FEBU students. So FEBU students is your population. So sample pun dalam kumpulan FEBU students juga. Okay, sample size is obtained from the population frame that has been determined. Okay, so you dah tahu dah how are you going to determine your sample. Okay, so dia ada dia punya methodology, dia ada dia punya guideline, so you have to follow that, and the sample can be further defined. So after that you must define your sample. Okay, issues in sampling. First, representativeness. A sample is a representative of the population from which it is selected if the aggregate characteristics of the sample closely approximate those same aggregate characteristics in the population, okay, that are relevant to the substantive interest of the study. So before we decide on which is our sample, first you have to define your population. By defining your population, only then you can go further to your sampling. Okay, then you can define your sample and explain on which method that you use in order for you to choose your sample. Okay, this is another diagram that can make you understand better. Okay, so the big circle here, the big circle of ants here, kita katakanlah this is actually FEBU students. Okay, so population. So population kita bubuh big N. Alright. Okay, while this one, the small apa ni kita panggil, the small group of ants here taken from this big circle, taken from, okay, daripada tengah-tengah ni, means that these small ants mempunyai similar characteristics of the big one. Okay, so this one is sample, okay, the small n. Alright, so bila you tengok big N, small n, then you know. Understand? Okay, then you know that, okay, small n is sample, big N is population. Alright. Okay, adequate sample size. Another issue is adequate sample size. It's necessary for statistical analysis for power and generalization. Okay, so generalization here, like I said just now, when you have adequate sample size, you tak boleh bila, okay, let's say I don't know FEBU students how many, I mean the total number of FEBU students. Okay, kita katakanlah, let's say kita katakanlah we have actually the total number of FEBU students, undergraduate students 1000 contoh. Okay, so macam mana you nak kira sample size? Okay, so ada cara dia, ada method dia. Bukannya simply you boleh ambil, okay, from 1000 I want to pick up about 30 students. No, that is not the way. Okay, why did you pick up 30? I think 30 students is enough. No, that is not the way you choose the sample. So you need to have what we call as adequate. Okay, adequate means ada cara tertentu untuk you pilih sampel. Okay, how many of them based on the number of the whole population. Okay, so why we need to have adequate sample size? It is necessary for statistical analysis for power and generalization. Bila you ada adequate sample size, you run the statistical analysis, okay, you got the findings, only then you can generalize the findings. You boleh cakap lepas tu. Okay. FEBU students, FEBU students begitu. Why? Walaupun you buat on a small group of students, but because you have this adequate number of sample size. Alright? Please mute your microphone, students. Okay, let's continue. Can you see my screen? Please raise your hand if you
Yes.
can.
Yes.
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 Okay, I said if you can see my screen, just raise your hand. Tak payah cakap yes, okay? Alright, okay, we'll continue. So, when you have adequate sample size, it can be obtained. How can you have adequate sample size? It can be obtained through sample size formula. Okay, ada beberapa formula. Okay, I don't want to explain here because this is not the right subject to explain how are you going to get the adequate sample size. Okay, you need to get this knowledge from your research methodology. I don't know when did you learn research methodology. Is it in year 3 or year 4? Okay, but in any year, I know you have learned this before my subject because my subject should be after research methodology. Okay, because my subject is focusing only on how are you going to conduct the communication research. Okay, so in getting the sample size, always give allowance for substitute so that minimum sample size can be obtained. Okay, so you have to prepare for the substitution. Let's say one person in a group cannot be your sample, so you can have the substitute. Okay, so that you still can have adequate sample size. Let's say you need to, after you use the certain formula, so you need to have about 100 students, for example, okay, for your sample. Okay, you need to prepare for the substitution because let's say in 100 students, ada 3 orang tak boleh menjadi sampel you or participant in your research because of ada kematian ke, maybe dia demam ke, contohnya dia terpaksa pergi tempat lain, so he or she is unable to be your sample, you need to have a substitution. Okay, pengganti. Why? Pengganti must be within the population that you define. Okay, why? Sebab kalau you tak ada pengganti, dia jadi let's say 100 tolak katakan 5 orang jadi 95. 95 sudah bukan adequate sample size. Okay, so that's how you obtain your adequate sample size. And benda ni semua saya nak tengok dalam research proposal nanti. Okay, then randomization. Okay, the application of the principles of random sampling to a chunk from a population in which a number of equivalent groups are to be established, whose differences from one another can be attributed to chance. Okay, so in picking up your samples, you must have this randomization. Randomization, I know you know what it is meant. Okay, in bahasa Melayu kita panggil random. Okay, random, rawak, secara rawak. Okay, jadi you do not choose, let's say, certain students yang katakan you are very close with, okay, within the population. Tapi you choose random within the population because it meets the criteria that you have defined. Okay, And this is important because baru you boleh generalize the findings. Alright? Okay, so this is how you pick your samples. Okay, let's say we have how many? Okay, we have 12 students as population. Okay, so from the 12 you need to pick 4 students to be your sample. Okay, so how are you going to pick the sample here? This is by random. Okay, so this one you pick, you can pick number 2, number 4, and then not necessarily number 6 and number 8, but can be number 6, 7, 8, okay, and then can be number 11, okay, can be, and oh sorry, can be number 10, okay, things like that. Okay, randomization is very important for statistical analysis as it is one of major assumptions or conditions for inferential statistical procedures, and randomization procedure should be explained in reporting the research, okay, because it only that it will make your findings generalized, okay. Okay, then we have, in randomization, we have probability sampling and we also have non-probability sampling. So what is probability sampling? Okay, it is a sample selected according to mathematical guidelines whereby each unit has a chance for selection, okay, while non-probability sampling does not follow the mathematical probability. Okay, you can, this one actually, I know you will learn this more in your research methodology, okay. Okay, and then we have probability sampling. We have 4 types of them. We have simple random sampling. Okay, what is simple random sampling? A method to choose cases from a population by which every case has equal chance of being selected independently. Okay, okay, this is how simple random sampling method is done. Okay, so this one example out of class of 50. Okay, contohnya dalam kita nak study on one group of students, okay, one class, okay, ada 50 students, okay, and from 50, 15 are selected, okay, to be the sample. So how are you going to pick these 15 students? Okay, you assign roll number from 1 to 50. Okay, you bagi card, each student will receive each card. So on a card it is stated number 1 sampailah card yang ke 50 tertulis tulisan huruf 50. Okay, and then you bubuh dalam bekas and you mixed up, you draw 15 numbers. So could be any of the numbers will be selected, not necessarily number 1 until 15, okay, or number 16 until 30. Could be anyone between 1 and 50, okay. Okay, this are just example. Okay, now systematic sampling. It is a method of sampling by which the first case from a list of population is randomly selected and then every case is selected. Okay, untuk systematic sampling pula you dah decide, okay, daripada first student yang pertama, kemudian seterusnya student yang keberapa. Okay, let's say you kata you nak pick every 5th, okay, KTH here, look at my notes here, this one KTH, okay, KTH here I highlight, this one KTH means Kath, okay, Kath here contohnya every 5th students, okay, so student number 1, kemudian you kira lah 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, every 5th student, kemudian you times 5 times 5 macam tu. Kalau you kata every 10 students, okay, will be selected, so number 1, kemudian number 10, kemudian number 20, number 30, macam tu. Okay, that is systematic sampling. Alright. Okay, so this is the diagram for systematic sampling. And then we have here, okay, example given, sama. Okay, now we have stratified sampling, a method of sampling by which cases are randomly selected from sublist of the population. So the sampling plan can be either proportional or disproportional. So stratification depends on variables and select sample from each strata randomly. It requires a complete sublist of the population or stratum. So you ada strata pula. Okay, apa dia strata? That is why we call as stratified. Okay. Example, students of Husin, you according to program, okay, you stratified them according to faculties, you stratified them according to year, according to living in campus or out campus, for example. So you need to get the complete list according to strata, or we call it group that has been identified. Okay, then you need to get sample from each strata to become respondents of the study, so that kita boleh buat comparison. Okay. All right. So this is stratified sampling. Okay. This is the whole population. Kemudian you group, okay, the population. All right. So from this group you ambil pula, baru you take the sample. Okay. This I give you example. This is USIM students. This is faculties. Okay. Students that you have stratified according to faculties, and then from the faculties, each faculties you ambil samples. Okay, you keluarkan untuk ambil sampel. So these are the ones yang you akan observe, you akan study, you akan measure. Okay, not this one and not this one. Okay, this one. So hasilnya nanti, let's say this one FEBU, this one FKP. So hasilnya nanti, the findings you boleh buat comparison, okay? Comparison between FKP and FEBU students in terms of online learning, for example, okay? How do they perceive? How do they accept? Okay, acceptance level. How do they, how effective the online learning on FKP and FEBU students. So you make a comparison or a comparative study on this. Okay, so bila ada comparison kena stratified sampling. Okay, now we move to cluster sampling. It is a method of sampling by which geographical units are randomly selected, and from selected areas randomly select samples proportionately. So it requires a complete list of geographical units. Okay, example population, kita ada population of Malaysia. Okay, kemudian you clusterkan. Okay, rakyat Malaysia ni you clusterkan East Coast, Pantai Timur, Utara, Selatan, and then Sabah Sarawak or Borneo. Okay, so cluster sampling. Okay. Okay, now non-probability sampling is done according to certain criteria only. Okay, and the samples must be independent. There should be adequate number of samples, and results cannot be generalized to the population. Okay, there are 4 issues of using non-probability sampling. The first one is the purpose of study. Okay, so kalau guna non-probability sampling, kita tak boleh nak generalize result to the whole population. Okay, and then cost versus value. Okay, the cost is too high for the sample, and then time constraints, research that need quick results, tak boleh guna non-probability samplings. Okay, and amount of accepted error or where study where error control is not a prime factor. Okay, why? Because non-probability sampling ini bukan random sampling. Okay, so ada kriteria tertentu kenapa kita pilih certain samples. Okay, so benda ni akan consume time, consume energy, because you need to really choose and select your sample. Okay, so antara types of non-probability sampling, okay, these are among, okay, not all, among snowballing sampling, convenience and purposive samplings, okay. Contohnya convenience, okay, you dah choose, you nak study on patients dalam ER, emergency room, okay. So you dah conveniently pilih sample you just go to ER and choose, okay. Ataupun snowball sampling, you dah okay, I have experience, not me, my friend, okay, who did a PhD on where he applied snowballing sampling. Kenapa he applied snowballing sampling? Because dia punya thesis tu he did on the perception of the homosexuals ataupun the gays in Malaysia on media coverage pertaining to religion, pertaining to Islam, okay, yang menyentuh soal-soal LGBT. So dia memilih snowballing sampling. Why did he choose? Because kalau dia tak pilih non-probability sampling, dia pilih probability sampling, dia tak boleh main tangkap muat pick any man, okay? Sebab dia hanya nakkan persepsi homosexuals, okay? Kumpulan golongan gays. Jadi dia kena guna snowballing teknik di mana dia mengenali seorang lelaki who is a gay, okay? So dia pergi kepada lelaki tersebut and then dia conduct this research, okay? Dia conduct an in-depth interview, tanya soalan semua. Kemudian bila dia dah selesai interview this guy, dia akan tanya lelaki ni, okay, kenal tak mana-mana gay yang lain? So lelaki ni akan sebut nama lelaki lain who is also a gay dan berikan nombor telefon. Kemudian dia akan contact, dia akan kata dia nak conduct a research on gay perspective. So dia pergi kepada lelaki yang kedua who is also a gay, okay. So dua lelaki ni sudah meet his criteria, that is he wants to get a perception of gays in Malaysia. Kemudian selepas dia interview the second gay, dia akan tanya the second gay, kenal tak lelaki lain who is also a gay? Dan the second gay will give contact number of another gay. So ini kita panggil snowballing technique. Dan macam mana dia nak berhenti daripada mencari sampel dia apabila dia mencapai what we call a saturated level of answers from each respondent telah memberikan jawapan-jawapan yang sama sehingga dia merasa dia punya dapatan itu sudah complete dan thorough. Only then he stops, okay. So biasanya kalau snowballing teknik ni memang samples tak ramai, tapi teknik menyoal is using in-depth interview. Teknik yang itu akan lama dan panjang kerana dia akan menyoal sehingga dia mencapai saturated level, okay, di mana setiap peserta, okay, research tersebut, respondent akan memberi jawapan yang sama secara berulang-ulang kali, okay. Okay, there are 4 issues. Oh sorry, terbalik pula. Okay, kita pergi ke next slide. Okay, types of non-probability. Okay, tadi yang diagram tadi sebahagian saja. Okay, now I'm going to give you all the types of non-probability sampling. So we have purposive, we have quota sampling, we have sampling bias. Okay, purposive is a method of sampling based on certain judgment or specific purpose. Like when I did my PhD, one of the sampling method I use is purposive samplings, because my PhD I did on the framing analysis of international media on Islam and terrorism. So I have chosen two international news magazine, that is Time and Newsweek, for my study. So the selection of Time and Newsweek is called purposive sampling. So I have already selected these two magazine. And why did I select these two magazines? Okay, I have to justify, okay, in my report. Okay, next one we have quota sampling. It is a method of sampling to include proportionate number of all parties involved. Okay, and then we have sampling bias. selected on the basis where researcher favors certain characteristics. Okay, so researcher have all the rights. Okay, only based on these characteristics that researchers have selected, so he can select his own respondents. Okay, convenience sampling macam yang tadi yang emergency room tadi, a method of sampling done as one places and feels appropriate. Okay, volunteer sampling, a method of sampling done based on those who like to participate. Okay, and snowball sampling, a method of sampling done by getting suggestion for next sample from a current sample. Okay, which one to use? Okay, now type of research we have, purpose of research we have, research complexity, amount of error tolerated, time constraint, financial constraint, previous research in the area. Okay, we have to make sure all these are available in our research in order for us to provide our limitation. Okay, sebab kita tak tahu kalau kita tak provide these things, kita sebenarnya akan go beyond and beyond and beyond sehingga kita tak siap-siap kita punya research. Okay, so we have to have this so we know which one to use. Alright. Okay, now we move to sampling error. Okay, sampling error occurs when measurements taken, okay, not from a sample do not correspond to what exists in the population. Okay, in the very beginning I mentioned bila you pilih sample, you have to make sure your sample represent the characteristics of the whole population. Okay, kalau tak represent, maka akan ada nanti sampling error. Okay, so it involves confidence level and confidence interval. When conducting a research, the researcher estimates the accuracy of the results in terms of a level of confidence of that results within a specific interval, and it has to be decided before you conduct your research. Okay, so in social science, kita semua social science, the confidence levels or significance levels is normally at 0.05. So it should be less than 0.05. So bila less than 0.05 means the researcher is 95% confident, okay, that his or her finding is within 5% confidence interval of the true population percentage. Okay, measurement error, it occurs when there is inconsistencies produced by testing or evaluation is present. Okay, for example, we want to measure the monthly family income, but we only ask the head of household monthly salary. So ini akan berlaku measurement error, sebab kalau kita nak dapatkan family income, kita kena tanya ahli dalam family tersebut siapa yang contribute income to the household family income. Okay, we want to know, okay, example number 2, we want to know their experience in using FB, but we ask how long they have been using the internet. Okay, so dalam internet ada macam-macam, not only FB. Kalau kita nak tanya experience guna FB, kita tanya guna FB, bukan guna internet. Okay, so ramai students yang buat salah benda ni. Okay, unit of analysis. What is unit of analysis? It is the what or whom being studied. Okay, FEBU students, news articles, news paragraph, sentences. Let's say you want to study on, kita kata on lecturers. Okay, so each lecturer yang you study itu adalah unit of analysis. Okay, so it refers to the people or things whose characteristics social researchers observe, describe and explain. Okay, so in social science and humanity research, the most typical units of analysis is always the individual person, unless you are doing on the content analysis. So your unit of analysis is the content of what you analyze. Okay, either you analyze the article, either you analyze actually the paragraph, or maybe the sentences, or maybe the word. Okay, so it may also be family, formal organization, who or what gives the data. Okay, so in brief, population is the entire group. Samples are selected from the population using probability or non-probability sampling, and it involves size. Okay, while respondents who actually respond or answer the question. Okay, so okay, now please raise your hand if you understand so far this topic, sampling and population. Raise your hand. Okay, very good. All right. So I think everyone can understand clearly. I hope that my explanation is clear. If you have if you have any problem, you can always ask me in the group, or you can personal message me. Okay, no problem. Don't forget to fill in the attendance form using the one that I've shared in the group. Okay, that one is special for KBA too. Okay, and you may proceed with your research proposal. Jangan lupa, because I want to see a complete and thorough research proposal. So you have to start from now. Okay, your work, and then get ready. Inshallah, in 2 weeks time, or maybe next week, I will decide on the quiz, and then dalam 3 minggu lagi kita akan buat mid semester exam. Inshallah. Okay, I think that's it for today. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.